Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome into another YouTube live show. Welcome back. Sorry I missed you this midweek, but I'm rearing to go. We've got some good stuff coming up because I've got a week's worth of material, folks. All right. You see the tease of the video. This is an interesting one. Admittedly, I was very impressed and a bit surprised at how candid one Big 12 athletic director spoke about the school's current financial situation in light of the revenue sharing era. And I'm sure it's going to turn some heads. I don't think it's any real, terribly serious threat, but it's a great way to lay out the reality of the situation everybody is facing in this revenue sharing era that is to come in college athletics. So we are going to talk about that. I've got the mathematical formula to prove who is going to win the Big 12 in football in 2026. And I'm only half kidding. Okay, I'm only half kidding about that part. Thanks to Josh Pate, I'll give him the assist on this one. So there's a little bit of a hint if you've been keeping up with Josh Pate lately. Brett Yormark taking on the SEC and the Big Ten, the latest college football playoff meetings that happened. It's been a minute since this happened, but I wanted to make sure it didn't get lost in the shuffle. What came out of those meetings, an important thing that I think Brett Yormark and others are doing. And ESPN dropped a little hint toward who they think more or less the Big 12 MVP could be this year in 2026. While CBS Sports also gave the Big 12 a hell of a compliment in terms of the quarterbacks that are playing in the conference. So a lot on the table, as I mentioned. Please, everybody who's filing in, do like the video, do subscribe to the channel. Many of you are not who typically watch this channel. It would be great if you could. It's very easy. One click, easy way to support me. Fill up the chat as well. Have some fun with it. But if you want to make sure that your question or comment makes it on tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box. That is how you can submit a super chat. We'll attach your donation to it and include it in the show tonight for sure. You can also, even if you're not watching live, drop me a line, leave a question or comment at John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo. That's a way to get in touch with the show as well. I will kick off the next show with your question or comment so you can still be a part of everything that's happening here on the channel. And of course, the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter is a great way to stay connected with all things Big 12 and to support what it is that I'm doing. Go to ofbnews.com or click the link in the description of this video to subscribe to that. It is totally free. Twice a week, it's coming straight to your inbox. I'll break down the big stories nationally, how they affect the Big 12, plus all the little minutia about the Big 12 you need to stay engaged with. I will deliver that straight to you. We had a great week with that. A lot of new subscribers, up over 3,700 subscribers now to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. So appreciate all of you here. I see that the anticipation is building in the chat, ladies and gentlemen. So I guess that means we need to go ahead and kick this thing off, huh? Look, there's one school that is going to be brought up here. In reality, this could go for a number of schools in the Big 12 because basically everybody is in this financial situation. And it's a reason why private equity and private capital have been considered. Okay. But look, we speculate here, not just here on this channel, but in the college football world all the time about teams that might leave the conference. And typically that is trying to level up. Right? They're trying to leave the conference voluntarily to go to greener pastures. But could a Big 12 school or Big 12 schools be in jeopardy of being forced to leave because of finances? One Big 12 athletic director spoke on that very, very candidly this week, and I appreciate him doing so. I would say he's one of the better Big 12 athletic directors that we have doing it right now in the conference. Okay, so let's lay the groundwork here. For those who are uninitiated here, revenue sharing era is coming as long as a judge will pass this, which, you know, has been a bit of a holdup right now. The roster limit currently one of the things that is really holding that up in court. But eventually we do anticipate that being approved. And then every school, the table stakes immediately become 20 million plus just to be at the major Power 4 level. If you want to have a chance to compete at the Power 4 level, you're going to have to revenue share $20+ million with your student athletes every single year. And by the way, that price will continue to go up as more revenue is generated. Now, there are different lines of thought on what it will take beyond that. if NIL is going to actually be doled out at fair market value, if teams are going to start going backhanding cash under the table. That all remains to be seen. But we know that table stakes will be at least $20 million per year. So that's a number that everybody can really operate off of. It doesn't guarantee you anything. It does not guarantee you success. But if you want to have the opportunity to just be in the room where success can be obtained, you're going to have to pay that money. Okay. So that's what everybody's dealing with. Now, Jamie Pollard, who is the athletic director at Iowa State, did a YouTube interview with Elijah Moore. And deep into this interview, I think it was Jack Trice Mafia, shout out to them, that I saw on Twitter, that had passed around this clip and started. I would not have found this, I'll put it that way, if not for them. So I appreciate that. Good aggregation there. And it is a great, long, full interview, so you can go check it out on Elijah Moore's YouTube channel. But he was talking about the realities of this situation. And if I was interpreting this correctly, this is not like a sports guy by trade that was interviewing him. So I think Jamie Pollard, knowing that he was speaking to perhaps a different audience than like a lot of us who are sports crazed and we all understand the situation, we talk about this all the time, I think that helped in the way that he described this and partially why we got such a candid answer. He's talking about the revenue sharing money, and he says, quote, this is Jamie Pollard, Iowa State athletic director, says, quote, Iowa State does not have that $20 million. Okay. Iowa State does not have that $20 million. But if we don't pay it for this coming year, we've got big problems, right? So we're going to pay it. That's basically, in a nutshell, what most schools are facing right now, at least schools that don't have a Cody Campbell, schools that don't have, for instance, the donor base built up that like a BYU would have. Pollard adds, now, because of tremendous financial discipline and everything we've worked on over the last 20 years, our athletics program had a pretty substantial cash reserve that we built up, and we used that reserve during COVID. So we didn't cost Iowa State, we didn't cost the student body, we didn't cost the Board of Regents a dime to get through COVID, which, that is something not a lot of places can say. Not every athletic department had been that fiscally responsible. That's clearly a point of pride with Jamie Pollard. You can see it in that answer, and that is absolutely helpful and impressive that Iowa State was able to do that. He's also quick to, right after this, rolls in a little bit of a jab at the rival at Iowa. So the University of Iowa athletics program got a $60 million loan from the university. Now they haven't paid a dime of that back yet, but they got a $60 million loan. We did not take a loan, and we funded it from our reserves. You're starting to see he's building the case now for like why you're going to have to dip into some of this. This will probably be some of the answer. If it's not going to be private equity or private capital, you are then left with these options like, okay, do we throw a student fee in there to pay for this? Do we take out a loan from the university? How is this going to work exactly? It will take something like that, because what is not an option if we want to stay competing at this level and stay in the conference is to find this $20 million. So Pollard says, quote, we can't fund the $20 million. In about 2 years, we'll be out of the reserve. So he's saying the timeline is like T-minus 2 years. You like Rocco Becht? T-minus 2 years to being able to hang on to a guy like Rocco Becht. Or if we don't have the money and we can't revenue share at that level, then he's going to get plucked away by somebody, or the next Rocco Becht, whoever that might be. Okay. And he is right, by the way, that it is an accomplishment in some ways to have not dipped into the university or student fees or anything like that yet. Like if you go around the Big 12, for instance, made a lot of headlines that Arizona got $36.2 million in subsidies from the university for the 2024 fiscal year alone. So Jamie Pollard's talking about $20 million for revenue sharing. Arizona's athletic department was in such a tough spot that they needed $36.2 million in subsidies. So, we can really get up there really fast with the cost of college athletics these days and what everybody is facing. Now, I realize some of this is, we've astronomical coach salaries, crazy buildings, and the money that's at it. I understand that athletic departments in some ways have done this to themselves. The NCAA has done this to itself, but it is still the reality many are facing right now. So here's kind of the bottom line from Jamie Pollard. He says, so Iowa State University will be faced with an athletics program with an huge annual deficit if it wants to stay in the Big 12 and if it wants to have a Power 4 athletics department. Now, we can just decide that we want to have an athletic program like Northern Iowa, but that's going to have a huge economic impact on the state, on Central Iowa, on the city of Ames, and on this institution. So that's the problem that we're staring at. So, I mean, it does not get more real than that. Like, that is real talk from Jamie Pollard. Iowa State's going to have a deficit every single year with this $20 million hanging over our head. And we can either pay it and stay in the Big 12 and stay as a Power 4 athletic department and stay making Sweet 16s and Big 12 championship games, or we can not borrow money from the university or not take a student fee from the student body, and we can just be Northern Iowa, and the entire local economy will be affected. And it will have a massive impact on the city, the state, and everything. And he mentions the institution. Like, that's part of it too. If you're the school looking at this, like, yeah, it's going to have a big impact on you. And I know this is like a kind of a controversial point in some ways that he's bringing up, because you'll get people around the university. Like, if you're going to talk about taking money from the students or whatever it might be, you'll get a lot of students that don't care about sports, and they'll be like, well, I don't want to do this. I don't care about sports. Don't take my money for sports, whatever the student fee is going to be. I don't know. You'd have to do the math on that. If you have like 30,000 students, how much money are you having to take from each one to get up to $20 million? I don't know exactly what that answer is. But if you're having to pay that fee, that's going to help you out even if you don't care at all about athletics. Athletics are the front door to the university. It kind of gives you a stake as a big-time university, which is going to result in more opportunities for you on campus. Inevitably, that all flows through that way, right? Like, I'm a K-State guy. I definitely know the whole story about 1989. K-State's thinking about dropping football, the worst football program in the country. Admissions go up. Everything with the university improved a bunch because Bill Snyder walked through those doors and reinvigorated the football program. It can have a huge impact on the university. Obviously, the local economy. I mean, you think about this, like, either Ames and Iowa State finds a way to pay $20 million, or same with like Manhattan, Kansas, Stillwater, Oklahoma, whatever it might be, or the entire local economy tanks. I mean, multiple different economies are built around all of this. Even think about, I mean, obviously, yes, sort of what I do, but people that do what I do, but full time for a living, people who have the job that I used to have. That's an entire economy in and of itself that crumbles. The bar scene, restaurants, like that whole, there's always a huge deal made when somebody gives up a home game. I've certainly seen it with K-State. I know it happens with others. If you give up a home game for some reason to go play a neutral site, like, you'll always hear the complaining about, and I get it, it's legit, complaining about, man, well, what does this do to the local economy? You're taking away a home game. That's a lot of money that these businesses are missing out on. Well, what if all of a sudden you become Northern Iowa instead of Iowa State? Instead of playing for a Big 12 championship, now you're in, I guess, maybe the FCS playoffs. That's a big difference, man. That's a big difference in an entire local economy. So you got to find a way to pay this $20 million. And it feels like a lot of this is Jamie Pollard just kind of laying the groundwork for like what is to come and what's going to be necessary. And if you want to call it that, like a necessary evil here for Iowa State to keep doing what they're doing. Now, Jamie Pollard also, I think, is in a good situation right now because he's got as much leverage as you could possibly have based on the success of the sports programs there right now. I mean, this is like the golden era of Iowa State athletics. So nobody wants to see that go, right? You got to keep that around, man. You got to keep that around. And I think that helps drive the point home of like, hey, this is the reality that we're facing. Like, I don't think that this is some serious threat that they would drop down to being like Northern Iowa, but it is the reality, and it is helping get more people on board with this idea. You got to put it to them in plain terms. Now, look, I've way fewer problems to deal with on this front than Jamie Pollard does, but it reminds me of when we first started talking about private equity and private capital in the Big 12, having those conversations. I was like, look, guys, like the reality is either you get involved with that or kiss Jalen Daniels, Avery Johnson, Cam Scadaboo, Sam Levitt, kiss those guys goodbye starting in a couple of years whenever we hit this revenue sharing thing and it goes full speed. Now, I guess Jamie Pollard's laying out a couple other options here, but if you don't have some cash infusion, I mean, that very well could be your reality. It's not enough to just say, hey, we need this money to pay the revenue sharing number. No, what does that actually mean? What are the consequences of that if you don't do it? Well, then you're not a major athletic program anymore. Well, then your star players are all going to get plucked away. That's the way that you have to frame it. So it's pretty smart. It's pretty smart, I think, the way that Pollard did all of this. Now, the last quote that I'll give you, he lays out a couple other things that are happening across the country. Jamie Pollard said, quote, Arizona State has put $50 million back into the athletics department on an annualized basis, okay? $50 million, 50. You pick the program, I can tell you what the number is. Iowa State's is 0 because that's the Board of Regents policy. So what would you feel as a fellow student if Iowa State did what Virginia Tech just did? Virginia Tech implemented a student fee that's generating close to $20 million per year, and they're going to use that fee to pay their student athletes. So again, that to me, I mean, look, I know the students are already paying way too much. I get it. The debt, it's a real thing that you come out of with it. And, job market can be tough. It's tougher to make as much. I understand all of those things. But academically, like if you want the school to stay having the same opportunities that it does, you need to fund athletics like this, or else there will be a real big step back. Or even just, I don't know, do you like all the restaurants in town? Do you like the bars in town? If you're a student, do you hang out at restaurants or bars or retail stores that you have? Because you're not going to get as much business. You're not going to get as many things there if you are Northern Iowa instead of Iowa State. No offense to the Panthers. Okay. So I appreciated this. I appreciate how candidly Jamie Pollard spoke about this. I think it is a real reality that's facing a bunch of schools. I mean, he just rattled some of them off there. We mentioned both the Arizona schools between myself and him today. Beyond that, Virginia Tech doing the student fees thing. Like these are all schools that are very much in the same boat. But that's the deal. Do you want to be FCS or do you want to be Power 4? That's what you got to do. So good stuff. Again, if you want to go watch the whole interview, that is on Elijah Moore's YouTube channel. You can see it on my Twitter timeline too. I retweeted the link in the video, I believe, from Jack Trice Mafia. So you can go find that. It's at JL Kurtz on Twitter. David, what's up, David? Thank you for being here, David. Appreciate you. David says, is the Big 12 requiring the 20 million? Just do 12 to 15 million. Well, I mean, 12 to 15, either way, it's like still a lot. Like, Jamie Pollard said that the 20 million would go away in 2 years. I mean, I guess you could add another year or two onto that if you are doing 12 to 15 instead of 20, but that's still going to drain the reserves that they have pretty fast. It's not long-term sustainable. You've still got a big problem there. The Big 12 is not like directly requiring that, but basically what we have found is that collectively the Big 12 all seems to be coming very, very close to this. Whether or not it's exactly at that revenue sharing number, I think may vary school to school, but they're going to come very, very close because everybody has gotten on board, like realizing like this is what you got to do. It is what you got to do. Appreciate you, David. So yeah, no, it's not like Brett, I guess. And to that end, David, it's not like Brett Yormark is sitting here saying, hey, Iowa State, get to $20 million, figure out a way to pry that out of your students or your university or whatever, or you're out, we'll kick you out tomorrow. No, it's not like that. It's just, hey, if you want to actually compete there and you want to be serious about this, you got to do it. You got to do it, or you might as well just go ahead and drop. All right, please like the video. Please subscribe to the channel. A lot of people in here tonight. Appreciate all of you who are here. Thank you for being here. Many of you are not subscribed. Please take a second just to click that button. I would really appreciate it. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter at ofbnews.com. That's ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of the video. Look, if you're tired of SEC and Big 10 crap twice a week, I'll take the big storylines in college football and break them down to how it affects the Big 12. So you don't have to read about how what's going to do the SEC or the Big 10 or whatever. And I'll give you all the major headlines within the conference straight to your inbox for free. Join 3,700 plus who subscribe at ofbnews.com. I know this is a bold statement, okay, but I'm going to tell you, we already know who the 2026 Big 12 football champion is going to be. And it's all because of mathematics that we just simply can't dispute here, people, okay? Thanks to Josh Pate for pointing this out to me. Was watching his show recently. Obviously, he does this on a national level. But he gave the specific formula for predicting the national champion in college football. Okay, now I realize I'm stating the Big 12 champion, not the national champion. But I thought, what if we take this same formula and apply it and see if that will give us a Big 12 champion? We can test this theory. All right. Here's the basic idea behind this. All right. On a national stage, a national level, the national champ, 5 of the last 6 years, has had the most first round draft picks in the subsequent NFL draft. So, for instance, Ohio State this year would fit that bill. If you want to go back 8 years, 7 of the last 8 years, the national champion then the next year has had the most draft picks overall. Ohio State had 14 draft picks overall this year to lead everybody, and that's after they won the national championship. So there you go. Michigan, by the way, is the one that did not hit this, and they had 13 players drafted last year. So you're going to get pretty close if you're following this formula, right? Now, how do you apply that if the draft is not taking place? Like, obviously, it happens after the season. Well, we use mock drafts, and like mock drafts are never wrong. Okay. Like why would you ever doubt a mock draft? I mean, we definitely have not in Big 12 country seen a major storyline and controversy over a player not being taken where all of the mock drafts suggested. And instead he waited around for 2 extra days than what people expected. We definitely have not seen that recently in the Big 12. So I have no idea why you would doubt a mock draft. Anyway, Josh Pate took 5 mock drafts to come up with his national champ for 2026. And so I did the same thing to come up with a Big 12 champ. I said, all right, give me 5 mock drafts. Let's see. I can even give you the names of the 5 that I used here. I used On3, CBS Sports, ESPN.com, Pro Football Focus, and USA Today, which was actually one where they used AI to do a mock draft. So, 4 human, 1 AI. Welcome to 2025. Josh Pate, using the 5 mock drafts that he did, came up with Clemson as your national champ. Now, he was these are first round mocks, so he's looking at who has the most first round draft picks. Clemson, 3.2 first round draft picks per mock. Clemson, the national champ. Now, that's interesting in and of itself, right? There has been a lot of Clemson hype that I have seen started to build this offseason. A lot of Cade Klubnik hype. People thinking that he may be the best quarterback in college football this year. It still seems perhaps a little bit premature to me. I mean, they looked okay against Texas, definitely put up a fight, not an Arizona State level fight, but, they were not a pushover in Austin. I'll give them that, but I don't know that I felt like they were ready to step up and be a national champion this year. But according to the mock drafts, that's what you got. That would really shake up some of the power dynamic right now. And what is this power 2 world? I mean, honestly, had to think about that. If you're the Big 12, is that something you would actually be rooting for? Just somebody to upset the apple cart enough to be like, hey, it's not just the SEC and Big 10 out here. But then, the ACC creates some more space from you if Clemson's still at a national title level. We'll see. I would bet against Dabo Swinney in 2025. Doesn't mean that he's not one of the best to ever do it. He absolutely is. But I would bet against that anyway. That's what Josh Pate put out there. He said, I believe Michigan did this at this time last year, and Michigan was the pick. They still had a bunch of guys drafted. Obviously, they didn't have a quarterback. They came closer than you would think this year. Okay? So if we apply that to the Big 12, 5 mock drafts, who has the most first-round draft picks, that's your Big 12 champion. The Big 12 in these 5 mocks averaged 2.4 picks per mock. Okay. 2.4 first round picks per mock draft. 2.8. 2.8 first round picks per mock draft. I read that wrong. That's almost 3, which would be up from 2 this year when the Big 12 just had Travis Hunter and Tetaroa McMillan taken in the first round. So actually maybe a little bit of improvement. I just talked the other day about how the Big 12 has this big problem in the draft. You need to start up in the talent level. 2.8 picks per first round mock draft. There were a couple of teams, Clemson, Texas, Penn State, that all equaled that according to what Josh Pate had polled, equaled or bettered that, but still feeling okay about that number. Here are the 3 schools that came close and are not the projected Big 12 champ based on this theory, okay? BYU. I saw one BYU player in one of these, okay? Keanu Tanuvasa, who transferred from Utah this offseason. Okay, he was in one mock draft. Colorado had one player taken in the 5 mock drafts that I saw. That is DJ McKinney, a defensive back. That was in the ESPN mock, which had 4 Big 12 players in the first round, by the way. Arizona State comes in second. They had 2 players taken in the 5 mocks, and they both came in 1. That was Pro Football Focus, who, man, they are high on the Sun Devils. They love them some Sun Devils, okay? Pro Football Focus had Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson both going in the top 10. Sam Levitt being taken 8th, Jordan Tyson being taken 10th. That would be one hell of a draft for the Big 12 and for ASU. But the winner and your projected Big 12 champion in 2026, based on all of this, the Utah Utes. The Utah Utes, okay? So don't say I didn't warn you. I've been somebody that's been here on this channel saying I expect a big bounce back year from Utah. Utah averaging 1.6 first-round picks per mock draft. Utah's, one thing I learned from this, Utah's going to have a good offensive line, people. Spencer Fano and Caleb Lomu, offensive tackles on that Ute offensive line, both were in almost every single mock. Fano was in every single mock, and he was as high as number 3. Number 3. Okay. So you still could have a Big 12 player taken in the top 5. How about that? Anyway, David Bailey. Oh, I forgot to mention Texas Tech. How did I leave out Texas Tech? Texas Tech got in there too. David Bailey was in 2 of the mocks. My apologies, Red Raiders. That is just bad prep work on my part. You know, I got called out by the Oklahoma State fans for my prep work. I did the work this time, and I forgot to relay it to you. David Bailey, who's the Stanford transfer, the edge, that went to Texas Tech, he also made it into a couple of mocks. So what you have is Utah number 1, Arizona State and Texas Tech tied for number 2, Colorado and BYU. Those would be the teams in the running for your Big 12 championship this year based on just who's getting mocked in the first round. Now, I can understand a lot of people rolling their eyes a little bit and being like, John, come on, man. That is not apples to apples when you're making that comp in the Big 12 and the national champion. And you are correct about that. It is not. Because the obvious flaw to the logic here is just the Big 12 is a place where everybody is so similar in terms of resources, generally with talent across the breadth of a roster. It's different than at the very tip top of the sport where like talent definitely does matter over basically everything. Like I think we're all at the point now where we understand concentration of talent has become such in college football that like that really does drive the bus. If you're going to win a national championship, get to the peak of that mountaintop, you got to have an insanely talented roster. It's different in the Big 12, and we need look not further than last year. Last year, Arizona State won the Big 12. Can anybody out there tell me how many Sun Devils got drafted? One Arizona State Sun Devil got drafted. That was Cam Skattebo. Shout out to Skattebo for a legendary season. But he was the only Sun Devil picked. Now, you can look at that and say, well, John, they had 2 top 10 picks, according to Pro Football Focus, next year that were on the team. Okay, yeah, fair. But the most Big 12 draft picks for a team was 4. Arizona State was 3 behind that this year, and they still won the league. They were picked last in the league. That was not like a roster that people thought was just overflowing with talent. It's a little bit different the way things go in the Big 12 here. So is this a perfect way to do it? No, not at all. Is it fair to say Utah probably deserves some legitimate respect in this conversation? I would say yes, not only because of this, because, you know, you should look at Devin Dampier and say, man, that kid looks pretty good. And they brought his offensive coordinator too. Like, they're probably going to have a defense. You know, they're going to have an offensive line capable of having a couple of guys taken in the first round. I like a lot of what seems to be happening here. I think that's where it can just be a piece of the puzzle, a piece of the bigger picture. Appreciate you all being here. Please click the like button. Please subscribe to the channel. Everybody, appreciate you all for being here. Subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, ofbnews.com to do that, or click the link in the description of the video. And if you want to make sure that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight, you can click the $ below the chat box. Click the $ below the chat box in order to do that. Submit a super chat. I will then read your question or comment on the show tonight. And just a great way to support what I'm doing, which I appreciate very much, everybody who does that. You can also chime in on Venmo, John-Kurtz-4 on Venmo in order to do that. And if you leave your question or comment there, I will kick off the next show with it. So lots of ways to get in support or to support what it is that I am doing. Let's branch out here, okay? Go college football playoff. The Big 12 does not have many opportunities to leverage the Big 10 and the SEC. Same goes for the ACC and Group of Five, that is. But they all have an opportunity now, and Brett Yormark seems to be taking advantage of this, okay? Holding the SEC and Big 10's feet to the fire in one spot where they actually can. So this comes through some reporting, which was extensive as always, from Ross Dellinger of Yahoo Sports, who's the best newsbreaker in the game right now in college athletics. Certainly, at least the most in-depth newsbreaker in college athletics. Ross Dellinger is a must-follow out there. But he reported on what happened at the college football playoff meetings, the annual spring meetings. They were last week, and Ross Dellinger dropped some notes on that. A lot of it fairly ho-hum. They still want to expand to at least 14. Dellinger did say 16 is still on the table, so looking at a 14 or a 16-team playoff. Leadership at the Big Ten and SEC continue to push the 4-4, 2-2, 1-1, which, of course, would have 4 auto bids for both the Big Ten and the SEC, and then 2 for the ACC and Big 12. Honestly, as frustrating as that is, just seeing how things went this year and where things seem to be going, really might not be the worst thing in the world just to sign on to if you're the Big 12 or the ACC, just to take the 2 auto bids. Though I get that it is literally signing on a sheet of paper that you are lesser than. I understand. And the other thing, of course, and this is more to come on this. This is kind of the crux of what I'm talking about tonight. They all want the selection committee to get an overhaul and tweak the decision-making process and the buys, all of that together, right? Selection committee being tweaked also could very much lead to this idea that you would get rid of conference championship games and instead just have like play-in games, and the conference champion in the regular season wouldn't have to mess with a conference title game there on that last week of the regular season. But this is really, I think, the key here. Okay. So Dellinger says the fact that the SEC and Big Ten have not rammed through the multi-automatic qualifier 4-4, 2-2, 1-1 format is telling. Despite work on the model from each of their conference staffs and wide support from their athletic directors and presidents, the conferences have yet to formally take procedural steps to adopt the format. It may be a sign. Is compromise afoot? Okay. So they haven't rammed through this 4 automatic qualifier format. Is compromise afoot? Because they can do look, if the Big Ten and SEC wanted it, they can do it tomorrow. Snap your fingers. They can make that happen if they really, truly do want that. The next playoff, it does not require unanimous support. The Big Ten and SEC have already anointed themselves the kings of that, like quite literally. They can do what they want. There's nothing anybody can do to stop it. So why would they not have done it? Well, maybe they are working on a bit of compromise here. Dellinger says, do the 2 conferences fear public backlash in adopting such a model? Do they want to prevent further disadvantaging the Big 12 and ACC? I have to laugh as I say that. They care. I appreciate that, Ross. They do not care. I can pretty much assure you of that. Public backlash, I'm not sure they really care about that either, because they've already taken like 2 full rounds of public backlash and it hasn't died. So it seems like they have the stomach for it. But what this seems to be about to me is the struggle over what the format is going to be this year, okay? Because this year you still have to get approval, unanimous from everybody involved. And what the SEC and Big Ten want to happen is they want 1 through 4 to get the buys, just the top 4 seeds get the buys, and not this conference champions thing that gave Arizona State and Boise buys last year. They don't want that. They want it changed. They want the 4 best teams getting the 4 buys. And of course, Big 12, ACC, Group of 5 is sitting here like, why the hell would we do that? You're asking us to literally give up money. You advance to the next round of the playoff. That's money, millions of dollars. Each round you advance. Why would we just give that up? Plus, obviously, we're just advancing further in the tournament. Like, are you high? Why would we just give that up? Well, the reason that they might is if it is going to compromise on something regarding the future format. So back to Dellinger asking, is there compromise afoot? That's where it could be. Sounds like, and this is reading other reporting around this, it does really sound like the idea generally is you've got the Big 12, the Group of Five, and the ACC sitting around like, we have leverage for once. This is maybe the last time we'll ever have leverage because we're about to enter in a new era where unanimous support is not required. It's a totally different world when we signed all this stuff in. We don't have opportunities to get leverage on these guys. Now, what would you use that for? Is there something you can get beyond 4-4, 2-2, 1-1? I highly doubt that you can talk him down to like 3-3, 2-2, 1-1. But I don't know. Is that the route that you try to go? I don't know exactly what the end game here would be. But it is an opportunity to stand up and be like, all right, well, let's talk. What are you willing to cough up here if we're going to give away money and give away a likely buy this year? Because, yeah, it's pretty unlikely that you're going to have a Big 12, I guess, or an ACC team in the top four, although I just told you Josh Pay predicted Clemson to win the national championship based on what the mock drafts say. So maybe Clemson would be, but it's still not something that the ACC would want to just voluntarily give up, right? You'd rather have the auto buy there. So I appreciate that it seems apparent that these guys are all using this, Brett Yormark included, as some legitimate leverage because they should. They should. I don't know what the downside really would be. You know, if you're going to say, well, fear of retaliation, you dig in on this, what are they going to do to you next time? I mean, they're going to do to you next time whatever it is that they're going to do, no matter what happens here. I think we've seen enough to understand how much greed is just totally driving the bus in every decision being made in college athletics these days. It's clearly an unsatiable greed that's happening with the TV networks and the SEC and Big Ten with the way they are running, in essence, the sport right now. What legitimately makes you think that they would decide to just get into like altruism all of a sudden and be like, well, you know, we'll just do whatever's best for everybody here. We'll help out the Big 12 and the ACC because they played nice with us and gifted us our free buys, even though Arizona State should have beaten Texas after getting a bye. They just gifted us that, so we'll be nice to them here. We'll toss them a couple of bones. No, don't trust that. You cannot trust them. You cannot trust Greg Sankey farther than you can throw him, okay? That's the ultimate reality here. One other thing I wanted to point out from all of this, Dellinger did mention, I did a segment recently about the report that was out there from Heather Dinich that they had discussed, or what was going to be up for discussion was maybe a formula that instead of auto buys, leagues would get buys for how their performance is measured on a sort of metric every single year. And that a part of that could be TV ratings, which obviously is just ludicrous and would be terrible. And that's how you start going down the road to sports entertainment and not actual sports. You know, that's how you start becoming WWE. You guys have all heard me talk about that. Another Josh Pate point on that I thought was pretty astute is that, hey, that may have just been a negotiating ploy. They know that you guys all hate that generally the mass audience hates the idea of the 4 auto buys. And so they're going to say, well, if we float that we'll use TV ratings to figure this out, that'll freak people out even more. They'll hate that so much that then when we circle back and we just get our 4 auto buys and say, fine, we'll drop the TV ratings thing, then it's like a compromise and people calm down more. And I was like, you know what? Damn it. That actually makes a lot of sense. And this is why when I say you can't trust Sankey and you got to take advantage of the leverage that you do have, this is why I say that. It's exactly why I say that, because of conniving scenarios like that. Anyway, there's your update. Brett Yormark and company holding the line, it would appear, for right now. We'll see what comes of this. I sure hope get something out of it. If you're going to give it up this year, get something out of it. If you don't, then fine. If they're not going to give you anything worthwhile, don't give in. Stick to it this year. Take another buy. Take a couple extra $1 million for it, and see what happens. That would be the move. What's up, David? Thank you, David, for being here. I appreciate your contribution again, my friend. David says, I think the SEC and Big Ten are still playing Risk and deciding what new territories they want in the ACC. Well, they've got some time. They've got some time to do that. It's not anything that needs to happen immediately, and maybe they can watch and see if Clemson gets back into the game of being elite. If they're going to jump up and win a national title or play for one or be really in the discussion this year, maybe that does make a bit of a difference. But with the way the landscape seems to be ironing itself out right now, waiting until the end of the decade, you probably got some time waiting around before you can pounce. And Florida State and Clemson don't have as much reason to push the issue as hard as they did before, at least now with the way things have settled down with the settlement between the ACC and those schools. So I think that could be a fair way to look at it. Hey, what do we want? What do our TV partners want? What's ultimately going to be best for the conference? We don't need to reach for anything. We're in a powerful position. Let's just play the board right now. I think that's a pretty fair synopsis there. Appreciate you, David. If you want to be like David, click the $ below the chat box to submit a super chat. That will guarantee that your question or comment makes it on the show tonight. Appreciate everybody who does that. But totally free ways to support the channel are many. Like the video. That's one click. Would really appreciate that. Subscribe to the channel. Also, one click, free, very easy. And for everybody out there, even if you are watching on Twitter, which we've got a huge Twitter audience tonight, you can subscribe to my Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, which will get you biggest stories in college football broken down to how they matter to the Big 12 twice a week, straight to your inbox, totally free. OFBnews.com is how you subscribe to that. That is OFBnews.com. You can also click the link in the description of the video if you are on YouTube, if that is easier. But we've got 3,700 plus Big 12 fans now subscribed. Appreciate all my new subscribers. Shout out to the new subs that are there. Okay, James, appreciate you. Thank you, James. Thank you for being here. And everybody else in the chat tonight. Let's talk some quarterbacks here, okay? Big 12 doesn't get a lot of respect on a national scale. I have tried to push the narrative, hey, the SEC tried to swipe Big 12 quarterbacks this offseason, did not work. Whether it was Rocco Beck, Avery Johnson, Josh Hoover, did not work. Big 12 must have some pretty good quarterbacks. Big 12 must have some good head coaches. They get mentioned for every single job opening that comes up. And really, I guess Jed Fish, if you want to count him, that's about the only time that a guy has ever been scooped up. And that was really technically before he had ever coached a game in the Big 12. So does that really count? Well, ESPN gave the Big 12, rather CBS, gave the Big 12 some real respect. And then ESPN kind of doubled down on that and said one quarterback. I would argue the way they framed this, one quarterback could be the most valuable player in the Big 12 this year and the key to the Big 12's playoff hopes. So let's dive into all of this, okay? CBS Sports, it was Brandon Marcello in his mailbag, who's their national guy, one of them. He said the Big 12 has the best group of quarterbacks in the country. Better than the Big 10, better than the SEC, it's the Big 12. Before you actually go breaking that down, just take that in, internalize that. That's a hell of a compliment. It's the most important position in the sport. It's one that should be easy to pluck away, theoretically, if you're a Power 2 school, right? And we know that Tennessee just tried and failed. That's some real validation for the Big 12. So here is what Marcello said. He said, on paper, the Big 12 has the best collection of quarterbacks in the country, but the SEC has an argument too. He points out not the Big 10. The SEC, not the Big 10, has an argument too. Marcello said, I'm a big believer that K-State's Avery Johnson is a potential superstar, but I wonder if he has enough talent around him to blossom into a top 10 quarterback. Look, I can understand why you would make that statement, but I disagree with it. I think K-State's done a really good job in the transfer portal. I don't know that talent will be the issue. I think cohesion could be an issue. New offensive coordinator, new offensive line coach in particular, when you're integrating a new offensive line. K-State's added some really nice pieces on the offensive line, headlined by J.B. Nelson, who they just got recently from Penn State. They've got Dylan Edwards, Joe Jackson. I think both of those guys are really good running backs. I get the skepticism on receiver, but I will tell you, Jerron Tibbs, a transfer from Purdue, and Jaron Bradley, who Texas Tech fans know all about, they have drawn rave reviews this spring, and to go along with Jace Brown, who had the best receiving season since Tyler Lockett last year for a receiver at K-State. Tight end room with 4 guys that caught a touchdown pass last year, and 5-star Lincoln Cure now added in there. I think he's got plenty of talent around him. It could still very well fail because of his own development or not cohesion there, but I do not think it's going to be a talent thing. Marcello also mentioned Baylor Sawyer Robertson. I mean, he should be great. I said Arizona State Sam Leavitt might lose running back Cam Scadaboo, but that means the quarterback should be the feature for Kenny Dillingham's offense, which is true. He's got Jordan Tyson back, which will help a lot. And then TCU's Josh Hoover was mentioned. Says Hoover was a hot commodity in transfer circles, and he did not enter the portal. He threw for nearly 4,000 yards last season and would have been a great addition for a high-flying offense like Tennessee. So that's why he says, yeah, Big 12's got the best group of quarterbacks. Now, he still said he would take the top of the SEC. Doesn't this sound familiar? Would take the top of the league, but maybe not the depth of the league. Since the top of the SEC is unmatched. You got Arch Manning at Texas, LSU's Garrett Nussmeier, DJ Lagway at Florida if he's healthy, and then he also throws Diego Pavia in there at Vandy. I mean, respect to Diego Pavia. So I can get that. I mean, we'll see about Arch Manning. A lot of talk, a lot of hype. He's got to go prove it. Garrett Nussmeier, I guess I get it. I don't know. Nussmeier is kind of one of those where I have always felt like it's maybe a touch overrated, but some of that could just be the team around him too. So he says from top to bottom, the Big 12 barely ekes out the SEC on paper. Now, Big 10, he's like, look, a lot of potential. Nico Iamaleava, Bryce Underwood, Julian Sayin, Fernando Mendoza, Dante Moore. But yeah, none of these guys are really established. You know, you've got like Drew Aller, Dylan Raiola, but still a long way to go for those guys. Not the most established group of quarterbacks. Okay, but on the Avery Johnson front, I want to single in here on something that ESPN said. ESPN wrote this past week, and I think this was Heather Dinich. Did a list of the most important players, basically the most important moves of the offseason related to the college football playoff. Most important decisions made on guys going or staying related to the college football playoff. And Avery Johnson made the list. He was the only Big 12 player to make the list. Okay. Yeah, here's the title. Top 10 players who decided to stay at their school this offseason in terms of impact on the playoff. So that could have been guys that decided not to go to the NFL, and it could have been guys that decided not to transfer. So you had players like LSU's Garrett Nussmeier, Penn State's Drew Aller, I just mentioned him, Cade Klubnik, who we talked about earlier from Clemson, guys who could have gone pro and decided to come back. But the Big 12 name that pops up, K-State quarterback Avery Johnson. And this was in terms of course, return to K-State as opposed to transferring somewhere. I say, of course, because you're like, of course, they include the Big 12 guy. And like, well, he didn't leave somewhere else. Says what his return means. K-State can win another wide open Big 12 and earn a playoff bid with Johnson. He never entered the transfer portal, but attracted interest, especially after Tennessee lost Nico Iamaleava. And there is a great quote here from a K-State source. K-State fans pay attention to this. Quote, "We got a damn wall built around him," a K-State source told ESPN. "They better bring the Tennessee National Guard." Funny quote. I mean, it's pretty in line with what I've heard about it. I also just don't, I think K-State is paying him well enough, and I think there's enough in place that he really likes that I just was never very worried. But that's what ESPN has to say. Now, Heather Dinich does give K-State credit for that depth at receiver. Says with the depth at wide receiver, K-State's passing game could flourish this fall. Brandon Marcello, take a note from Heather Dinich here, my friend. But the Big 12, first point I will make, the Big 12 has done a great job building a wall around most of their best players and coaches, right? Josh Hoover, Rocco Beck, any coach who's been pursued, right? Like all these coaches that have stuck around. The Big 12 does a pretty good job with that in general. But that was a pretty important statement, right? It could have been Rocco Becht. It could have been Josh Hoover. It could have been Sam Leavitt. I've told you before, I don't think it's a huge secret at this point that Oregon definitely was poking around on Sam Leavitt there for a while. But ESPN decides to go with Avery Johnson here. I had him on my list of top 5 most important players for the Big 12 season recently. You might move him up. The deeper we got in on this, the JB Nelson move is maybe influencing me a lot here, just admittedly. Guy who's a potential pro guard / tackle that just was the odd man out on the best offensive line in the country at Penn State, transferred to K-State. I just like what K-State has done around Avery Johnson. To me, the big question will be, does he take a step forward? And I think that's very much a big question. Like, I've got to see that, man. I've got to see him take a legitimate step forward before I believe that it will happen. So it's prove it mode for me as far as that goes. But that's why I think he's so important, because I think K-State has built the infrastructure around him to be really good. If Avery is ready and capable of taking that step. I mentioned the class Ohio State, Penn State, and USC. That's where they took offensive linemen from in the transfer class. George Fitzpatrick from Ohio State, I think, is going to start at left tackle. JB Nelson could very well start a guard or tackle. Amos Talalele from USC could be a guy who winds up starting at guard at some point this year. Told you about Bradley and Tibbs at receiver. They kept Dylan Edwards and Jace Brown. They add 5-star tight end Lincoln Cure. The defensive guys they've added, Gunnar Maldonado, Big 12 name that you should know from Arizona. I love that one. Ja'Shawn Ross, they pick up from Alabama, guy who can really get after the passer. Man, I don't know. I think K-State absolutely should be in a Big 12 and playoff mix. And if Avery Johnson takes even a modest step forward, I think they'll be there. If he takes a legitimate step forward, that's when you're talking about this guy being right up there as far as most important in the Big 12. It's very similar. I had Baron Morton as number 1, I believe, on that list, because it was like, hey, Tech built this roster around him. Baron Morton's the guy that's got to drive the Ferrari now. Just don't crash it, Don't go Wolf of Wall Street when he's trying to drive to the country club. Long as you don't do that, you should be okay. So that's why I think Avery Johnson and Baron Morton still are both kind of fit in the same category. Now, Tech, higher caliber of player, but I definitely trust the infrastructure and coaching staff at K-State more, if we're being honest, just based on what the programs have been over the last 15 to 20 years. But I think those guys are both in really, really similar boats, and just using the ESPN to kind of back up that point, supplement that point a little bit, that ESPN seems to see it the same way, that's someone that could be very, 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 very important, because if they're saying, hey, it's of interest to the playoff race, obviously that's of interest to the Big 12 title race. So, okay. I think that's it, guys. That's what I've got for you here. Show flew by tonight, man. Went really, really fast. Appreciate you all. If you have a buzzer beater thing, now is the time to throw it out there, to click the $ below the chat box to do so. But if you could like the video on the way out, I would really appreciate that. That would be awesome. If you can subscribe to the channel, that would be awesome as well. Appreciate everybody who does that. If you subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter, I would be eternally grateful. It's ofbnews.com to do that. ofbnews.com to subscribe to the Open for Business Big 12 newsletter. Join 3,700 plus Big 12 fans who do, and get the biggest stories in college athletics broken down to how they matter to the Big 12 twice a week for free, straight to your inbox. ofbnews.com, or click the link in the description of this video. Thank you, Ron. I am not a big Star Wars guy, but I respect and appreciate everybody who loves the Star Wars theme today. I saw people dressed as Star Wars characters. May the 4th be with you as well, everybody. Thank you for hanging out tonight. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday night. I hope you guys all have an excellent week. I will talk to you very soon.